My name is Madison. Today, my family fired me to hire my sister instead. What they don't know is that I own the entire building they're working in, and tomorrow morning they're going to receive an eviction notice. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, stay until the end of this story. And if you love stories about justice being served, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. I promise you, the ending of this story will make you believe in karma. I was sitting at my desk, working on a presentation for one of our biggest clients. 8 years. I'd been with this company for 8 years, ever since I graduated from State University with honours. The family marketing agency, my father's pride and joy. Well, one of his daughters was his pride and joy. It just wasn't me. The door to my office swung open without a knock. That should have been my first warning. My father walked in, and behind him, my sister Vanessa stood with that smile. You know the one. The smile that says she's already won something you didn't even know you were competing for. Madison, we need to talk, my father said, his tone all business. He didn't sit down, neither did Vanessa. She just stood there, arms crossed, looking around my office like she was already measuring it for new furniture, my hands stilled on the keyboard. What's going on? We've decided to restructure. My father's words were clipped, rehearsed. Vanessa will be taking over your position starting next week. You have until tonight to clear out your desk. The words hit me like cold water. Wait, what? Dad, I've been here 8 years. I just brought in the Morrison account. That's $1 million client. He cut me off with a wave of his hand. Vanessa has her MBA from Columbia. She's more qualified for this position. The decision's been made. I looked at my sister. Vanessa shrugged, her smile widening just a fraction. Don't worry, little sis. I'll keep everything running smoothly. Maybe you should look for something more suited to your level, my level. As if 8 years of 60-hour weeks, of bringing in clients, of training every new hire, of being the person everyone came to when they needed something done right meant nothing. As if my entire existence here could be erased with one conversation and a cardboard box. Dad, I tried again, hating how my voice shook. You're firing me. We're making a business decision, he said, already turning toward the door. Nothing personal. You understand? But it was personal. It had always been personal. I sat there after they left, staring at the blank computer screen. The cursor blinked, waiting, just like I'd been waiting my whole life for them to see me. Really see me. I was 12 years old when I first understood I was invisible. It was my middle school graduation, not a huge deal, I know, but it mattered to me. I'd worked hard, made honour roll, even won an award for my science project. My parents promised they'd be there. The auditorium was packed with families. I kept craning my neck, looking for them in the crowd. My name was called. I walked across that stage alone, took my diploma, smiled for a picture that no one from my family would ever see. When I got home that evening, my mother was in the kitchen preparing dinner. Not a celebration dinner for me, just dinner. Where were you? I asked, still holding my diploma. She didn't even look up from chopping vegetables. Vanessa had a presentation at Greenwood Academy. We couldn't miss it. You know she's applying to top schools, Madison. This is important. Important. Vanessa's presentation was important. My graduation wasn't. I went to my room and put the diploma in a drawer. I didn't take it out again until I moved into my first apartment 7 years later. 4 years after that, it happened again. I was 16 and I'd just received news that changed everything. Full academic scholarship to State University, full ride, everything paid for. I was so excited I could barely breathe. I ran downstairs waving the letter. "Mom, Dad, I got in, full scholarship." My mother looked up from her laptop. "State school? That's nice, honey." Her tone was the same one she used when I told her I'd cleaned my room. Pleasant, distant, meaningless. My father didn't even glance up from his newspaper. "Good for you, kiddo." That was it. "Good for you, kiddo." That night at dinner, though. That night they couldn't stop talking. Vanessa was deciding between Yale and Columbia. Which had the better business program? Which had the more prestigious alumni network? My parents debated it like it was the most important decision in the world. I sat there, pushing food around my plate, and I realised something. I could be valedictorian, and Vanessa could get a C, and they'd still throw her a parade. Because it was never about what we accomplished. It was about who we were to them. Vanessa was the golden child. I was just there. 6 years later, I graduated from state with honours, top 10% of my class. I sent out invitations to my family weeks in advance. My parents said they'd come. They promised. The morning of graduation, I was getting ready in my dorm room when my phone rang. It was my mother. "Sweetheart, I'm so sorry, but we can't make it today." My hands froze on my cap. "What? Mum, it's my graduation." I know, but Vanessa just got an offer from Goldman Sachs. We're flying to New York to celebrate with her. This is huge for her career. You understand, right? I understood. I understood perfectly. I walked across that stage alone, again, took my diploma again, smiled for pictures that my family would never see again. I was 24 years old when my grandmother died. It was sudden. A heart attack in her sleep. Peaceful, they said, but it didn't feel peaceful to me. She was the only person in my family who ever really saw me, who asked about my day and actually listened to the answer, who came to my graduations and birthday parties and every small moment that mattered. The funeral was on a Tuesday. The will reading was on Friday. I sat in the lawyer's office, wedged between my parents. Vanessa was on my father's other side, scrolling through her phone like she had better places to be. My grandmother's attorney, Mr. Chen, was an elderly man with kind eyes and a patient voice. He read through the smaller items first, family photos, jewellery, books. Then he paused and looked directly at me. To my granddaughter Madison, I leave the entirety of my real estate holdings on the downtown block of 6th Street. This includes the main commercial building and all associated properties. The room went silent. My mother gasped. "What?" Vanessa's head snapped up from her phone. "That's the downtown block? That's worth..." "That property is currently valued at approximately $15 million. Mr. Chen said calmly. My father stood up. "This is ridiculous. Eleanor wasn't in her right mind at the end. We need to contest this." Mr. Chen's expression didn't change. Mrs. Eleanor Chen was of completely sound mind until her final day. I have medical documentation to that effect. Furthermore, she updated this will just 6 months ago, with full awareness of her decisions. He turned to me. "She left you a letter as well, Madison, but she specified it should only be opened when certain conditions are met. I'll hold it in trust until that time." Vanessa was furious. "This is insane. Madison doesn't know anything about property management. She's going to run it into the ground." "Actually," Mr. Chen said, pulling out another document. Mrs. Chen set up a comprehensive property management system. Madison will have full support. I sat there, numb. My grandmother had left me millions, a whole block of downtown real estate. And my family looked at me like I'd stolen something that belonged to them. On the drive home, no one spoke to me. Vanessa sat in the back seat, arms crossed, glaring out the window. My mother kept sighing loudly. My father's hands were white-knuckled on the steering wheel. When we got to their house, I didn't go inside. I went straight to my apartment, called Mr. Chen, and asked him not to tell my family the full details. Not about the actual value. Not about the rental income, not about any of it. Let them think it was just some old buildings. Let them think whatever they wanted. For once in my life, I had something that was mine. Something my grandmother had given me because she loved me. Because she believed in me, and I wasn't going to let them take that away. Over the next few weeks, I worked with Mr. Chen to understand what I'd inherited. The main building was a 6-story commercial property in the heart of downtown. Prime location. The ground floor had retail spaces. The upper floors were office spaces, all fully leased, all generating steady income. One of those tenants was my father's marketing agency. They'd been leasing 3,000 square feet on the 4th floor for the past 8 years. The lease was at a family discount rate. $15,000 a month, when market rate was closer to $35,000. The lease is up for renewal in 8 months, Mr. Chen told me during one of our meetings. What would you like to do? I looked at the papers spread across his desk, my family's company, the place where I'd poured my heart and soul for 8 years. The place where I'd proven myself over and over, only to be told I wasn't enough. Let's just maintain the current arrangement for now, I said. I don't want them to know I'm the landlord. Mr. Chen raised an eyebrow. May I ask why? Because I need to build my own life first, on my own terms, without them. I met his eyes. Is that possible? He smiled. The property is held in trust under your grandmother's estate name. The management company handles all tenant relations. They'll never know unless you tell them. So I didn't tell them. I went to work every day at the family agency. I brought in clients. I managed teams. I worked late nights and early mornings. I proved my worth over and over again, even though I was starting to understand that no amount of proof would ever be enough. And in my private time, I worked with Mr. Chen to renovate the properties, increase their value, attract better tenants. My grandmother's gift was growing, thriving, just like I was learning to do. 8 years of silence, 8 years of watching my sister get credit for my ideas, 8 years of being passed over for promotions that went to Vanessa, even though she'd only been with the company for 3 years. 8 years of watching my parents light up when Vanessa walked into a room and barely notice when I left. But 8 years was also how long I'd been building something they knew nothing about, something that was mine, something I'd earned, not because of a last name or favoritism, but because my grandmother saw in me what they never could. The day my father fired me, I went back to my office and started packing. It didn't take long, 8 years, and all I had to show for it fit in 2 boxes. Some photos, a coffee mug, a nameplate that said, Madison Chen, Senior Account Manager. I left the nameplate on the desk. Vanessa could have it. Sarah, my assistant, came to my door. She was 23, fresh out of college, and one of the few people in the office who'd always treated me with genuine respect. Madison, she whispered, glancing over her shoulder. I'm so sorry. This is wrong. Everyone knows it's wrong. I managed a smile. It's okay, Sarah. Life has a way of working things out. What are you going to do? I'm going to be fine, I said, and I meant it. For the first time in my life, I actually meant it. Vanessa walked in just as I was taping up the second box. She didn't knock either. Apparently that was a family trait. Wow, still here? She sat down in my chair, spinning it around. You know, I've always thought this office had potential. I'm thinking of bringing in a designer, really make it mine. I picked up my boxes. It's all yours, Vanessa. Hey, Madison, she called as I reached the door. No hard feelings, right? It's just business. Just business. That's what they kept saying, like firing your daughter, your sister, after 8 years of loyalty was just a normal Tuesday business decision. I walked past my father's office. Through the glass wall, I could see him on the phone, laughing at something the person on the other end said. He saw me walking by with my boxes. Our eyes met for a second. Then he turned away. I passed the conference room where my mother was having lunch with Vanessa's friend from Colombia. They were laughing, heads close together, probably planning Vanessa's big debut as the new senior account manager. No one said goodbye. No one thanked me for 8 years. No one even acknowledged that I was leaving. I loaded the boxes into my car and sat in the driver's seat for a long moment. I thought I'd feel devastated, hurt, angry maybe. Instead, I felt something unexpected, relief. For 8 years, I'd been trying to earn something that was never mine to earn. Love, respect, recognition. I'd been beating my head against a wall, thinking if I just worked harder, achieved more, proved myself better, they'd finally see me. But the truth was simpler and harder than that. They didn't want to see me. They'd chosen not to see me a long time ago, and nothing I did was ever going to change that. I pulled out my phone and called Mr. Chen. Madison, he answered warmly. How are you? They fired me, I said. My own family just fired me from the company I helped build. There was a pause, then, I'm sorry, that's unconscionable. Their lease is up in 60 days, right? Another pause, longer this time. Yes, 60 days. I don't want to renew it. Madison, I know, I interrupted. I know what you're going to say. They're family. But Mr. Chen, for 8 years, they've shown me exactly what I am to them. I'm the daughter who isn't good enough, the sister who's always in the way, the employee who can be replaced without a second thought. My voice was steady, calm. So I'm going to treat them exactly how they've treated me, like a business transaction, nothing personal. I could hear him typing. I'll prepare the notice. 60 days as required by the lease agreement. They'll receive it tomorrow morning. Thank you. Madison, your grandmother would be proud of you. You know that, right? I smiled, even though tears were burning behind my eyes. I hope so. That night, I met my best friend Jenna at our favourite coffee shop. Jenna and I had known each other since college. She'd been my roommate, my study partner, my maid of honour at the wedding I never had because I was too busy working to date anyone seriously. Now, she was a successful attorney at a downtown firm. They what? Jenna's voice carried across the coffee shop. Several people turned to look. I shushed her, laughing despite everything. They fired me. My dad said Vanessa was more qualified. Vanessa? The one who's been there 3 years and spent the first 6 months learning things you'd already been doing for 5. That Vanessa? She has an MBA from Colombia, I said, mimicking my father's tone. Jenna leaned back in her chair, shaking her head. Madison, I've watched you kill yourself for that company. You've brought in their biggest clients. You've trained their entire team. You worked through holidays and weekends. And they fired you for your sister. Apparently, I'm not qualified enough. That's garbage, and you know it. Jenna studied my face. So what are you going to do? I took a sip of my coffee. I'm not renewing their lease. Jenna's eyes widened. The building, they're in your building. 60-day notice goes out tomorrow. For a moment, Jenna just stared at me. Then a slow smile spread across her face. Madison Chen, I have waited your entire life for you to stand up to them. I'm not trying to hurt them, I said quickly. I can't keep letting them treat me like I don't matter. Like I'm disposable. You're not being cruel, Jenna said firmly. You're setting boundaries. There's a difference. They need to learn that actions have consequences. They're going to be so angry. Let them be angry. Madison, you've spent 32 years trying to earn love from people who aren't capable of giving it. Maybe it's time to stop trying. She was right. Deep down, I knew she was right. Over the next 2 months, I threw myself into building my own consulting firm. I'd been thinking about it for years, but never had the courage to actually do it. Now, with no job tying me down and a steady income from my properties, I had nothing to lose. I rented a small office on the 12th floor of my own building. Ironic, I know, but it was perfect, modern, professional, mine. I reached out to contacts I'd made over the years. The clients who'd always asked for me specifically, the professionals who knew my work. Within 3 weeks, I had my first client. Within 5 weeks, I had 3. And then Stella Corporation called. Stella Corp was the account Vanessa claimed to have won. The $1 million deal she'd been bragging about at the family dinner I'd been invited to out of obligation. But when their CEO, Richard Morrison, called me, he told a different story. Madison, I'm going to be frank. We agreed to that meeting with your family's firm because we wanted to work with you. When we found out you'd left, we put everything on hold. Your sister... He paused diplomatically. She's not connecting with our vision. I appreciate you calling, Richard, but we want to hire you. Your firm. $500,000 for a year-long contract. We'll pay 50% up front. Are you interested? I sat there in my new office, looking out at the city skyline. 6 weeks ago, I'd been fired, told I wasn't qualified enough. And now one of the biggest corporations in the city was offering me $500,000 because they wanted to work with me. Not my family's company, me. I'm very interested, I said. Excellent. I'll have my assistant send over the contract. After I hung up, I sat in my chair for a long time. I thought about my grandmother, about how she'd believed in me when no one else did, about how she'd given me not just financial security, but the foundation to build my own life. Thank you, Grandma, I whispered to the empty office. I'm doing it. I'm really doing it. That weekend, I moved out of my small one-bedroom apartment and into the penthouse on the top floor of my building. It had been vacant for a year, and I'd been working with a designer to renovate it. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, an open kitchen with marble countertops, a bedroom that felt like a sanctuary. For the first time in my life, I decorated for me. Not trying to impress anyone, not trying to prove anything, just me. I bought art that made me smile. I filled the bookshelves with novels I'd always wanted to read but never had time for. I set up a yoga space in the second bedroom and actually used it. I went to therapy, started dealing with years of feeling inadequate, invisible, not enough. I travelled, just weekend trips at first. But I went to places I'd always wanted to see and never bothered to visit because I was too busy trying to prove my worth at a job that didn't value me. And slowly, quietly, I started to heal. I was having coffee on my balcony one Saturday morning when my phone buzzed with a text from Mr. Chen. The notice was delivered yesterday. I expect you'll be hearing from them soon. I stared at the message for a long time. Somewhere across town, in that fourth-floor office I'd occupied for 8 years, my family was opening an envelope that would change everything. They still didn't know I owned the building. They still didn't know about my consulting firm's success. They still didn't know that the daughter they'd dismissed, the sister they'd replaced, the employee they'd fired without a second thought, had been quietly building an empire while they weren't looking, but they were about to find out. I set my phone down and took a sip of my coffee. The city stretched out before me, full of possibility, full of life. And for the first time, I was ready to live it, not for them, for me. The wind picked up, rustling the plants on my balcony. Somewhere in the building below, I knew chaos was probably erupting. But up here, in my sanctuary, I felt nothing but peace. Monday morning, 8:45. The receptionist at my family's agency opened the certified mail like she did every morning. Bills, invoices, standard business correspondence. Then she pulled out a letter with a law firm's letterhead and the words, "Notice of non-renewal," in bold at the top. Her face went pale. She read it once, then twice. Then she practically ran to Vanessa's office, my old office. I know all this because Sarah texted me. She was still working there, still my friend, still keeping me updated on the chaos I'd set in motion. She sent me a play-by-play like she was narrating a sports game. Receptionist just freaked out, running to V's office with some letter. Then 30 seconds later, V just screamed. Screamed. Your dad's office door just slammed open. I was in my own office, 12 floors below their panic, sipping my morning coffee and trying not to smile, trying, not succeeding. My phone buzzed again. Emergency meeting. Your mum just called everyone into the conference room. This is insane. In that conference room, I imagined the scene playing out. My father at the head of the table, my mother with her reading glasses on, scrutinizing the document. Vanessa pacing because she always paced when she was stressed. The notice was simple, professional, cold. This is to inform you that your lease agreement for Suite 400, 428 6th Street will not be renewed upon expiration. As per your lease terms, you have 60 days to vacate the premises. The property management can provide references for commercial movers if needed. Regards, Madison Chen Property Trust. Madison Chen. I could picture Vanessa's face when she read that name. The confusion. Then the dawning realization. Madison Chen, my father would have said. Is that our Madison? My mother would be pulling up property records on her laptop, her fingers flying across the keyboard. She was always the one who dealt with the financial details. The property is listed under Eleanor Chen Trust. That was your mother. The will, Vanessa would say, her voice rising. The real estate grandma left her, but those were just some old buildings. How could she own this entire property? Oh, Vanessa. Sweet, oblivious Vanessa. You never asked questions. You just assumed. My phone buzzed. Sarah again. Your dad is losing it, trying to call you, like repeatedly. I looked at my phone screen. 7 missed calls from Dad. I declined the 8th and set my phone face down on my desk. They tried texting. First my father. Madison, we need to talk about this notice. Call me immediately. Then my mother. Sweetheart, there's been some misunderstanding with the lease. Can you, please, call us? Then Vanessa. Madison, this isn't funny. You can't just kick us out. We're family. I responded to none of them. I had work to do. Real work, client presentations, strategy meetings, building something that was actually mine. At the agency, the panic was setting in. Sarah kept me updated throughout the day. Your mum just came out of her office. She looks like she's been crying. Your dad is on the phone with commercial real estate agents. They're all quoting like 35K a month for comparable spaces. V just threw something. I think it was a stapler. The financial reality was hitting them. They'd been paying $15,000 a month for prime downtown office space. Family discount, my grandmother's kindness. And now market rate was more than double that. With their current cash flow issues, thanks to Vanessa's expensive office upgrades and the clients she'd been losing left and right, they couldn't afford it. 3 days later, they showed up at my apartment. My old apartment, the one I'd lived in for 6 years, the 1-bedroom with the broken dishwasher and the neighbour who played drums at 2 a.m. I wasn't there, of course. I was in my penthouse, but they didn't know that. They stood outside my old door, knocking, calling my name. The new tenant, a college student named Marcus, eventually opened the door, looking confused. Madison moved out like 2 months ago, man. I don't know where she went. Sarah sent me a video. Vanessa, standing in the hallway of my old building looking lost and frustrated. Where the hell is she? They tried my office next. That's when things got interesting. I was in a meeting with Stella Corp's marketing team when my receptionist, Kelly, buzzed me. Ms. Chen, there are 3 people here claiming to be your family. They don't have an appointment. I excused myself from the meeting and walked out to the reception area. There they were, my father in his expensive suit, looking uncomfortable and out of place. My mother with her purse clutched in front of her like a shield. And Vanessa, arms crossed, that familiar mix of anger and entitlement on her face. They all looked at me, really looked at me, maybe for the first time in my life. I was wearing a tailored navy blazer, black pants, heels that made me 3 inches taller. My hair was done. My makeup was perfect. I looked successful. I looked confident. I looked like someone who belonged exactly where she was. Oh, my father said. Madison, this is your office? Yes. I didn't smile, didn't offer to hug them, just stood there, professional and distant. Did you need something? I'm in the middle of a client meeting. We need to talk, Vanessa said. About the building, about the eviction notice. I'm sorry, do you have an appointment? My mother's face crumpled a little. Sweetheart, please, we just need a few minutes. I looked at Kelly. She was 26, sharp as a tack, and had already picked up on the tension. Kelly, could you please check my calendar? She pulled it up, even though we both knew it was full. You're booked solid until 6, Miss Chen. There you have it. I turned back to my family. If you'd like to schedule something, you can do so through the website. We typically book a week out. Madison, stop this, my father said, his voice taking on that commanding tone he used when he wanted to shut down an argument. We're your family. You can't treat us like strangers. Something in me snapped, not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet, final breaking of a thread that had been fraying for 32 years. You fired me, I said quietly. After 8 years, you fired me without a second thought. You replaced me with Vanessa and told me I wasn't qualified. You treated me like a stranger first, Dad. I'm just returning the favour. That was business, he protested. And so is this. You're my tenant. Your lease is up. I'm not renewing. That's business. Vanessa stepped forward. You've been hiding this from us. You let us think you were just ordinary. You've been playing us this whole time. I almost laughed. Playing you? Vanessa, I've been living my life. The life Grandma wanted me to have. The one where I didn't have to beg for scraps of validation from people who couldn't see my worth. You own this building, my mother said softly, looking around the sleek lobby. You own the whole block. I do. The building we're in is mine. Yes. My father's face was red now. You can't evict us. You can't kick your own family out onto the street. I'm not kicking you onto the street. I'm not renewing a lease. There's a difference. You have 60 days to find new office space. That's more than fair. Fair? Vanessa's voice was shrill now. You're destroying our business. You're destroying our family. No, I said, and my voice was steady, calm. You destroyed our family when you treated me like I was invisible for 32 years. When you missed every important moment of my life because Vanessa's moments mattered more. When you fired me for being your daughter. I met each of their eyes. I'm not destroying anything. I'm just finally choosing myself. Madison, please, my mother tried again. Can we just talk? Just the four of us? Book an appointment. I turned and walked back toward the conference room where the Stella Corp team was waiting. Kelly, please see them out. I didn't look back. I heard my father start to say something, but I was already through the door, already back in my meeting, already focused on the work that mattered. The work that was building something real. That night, Jenna came over to my penthouse. She brought wine and Thai food and her laptop. Okay, she said, spreading papers across my coffee table. I did some digging into their financials, public records, business filings, that kind of thing. Madison, they're in trouble. I sat down next to her, looking at the numbers. Revenue was down 30% since I'd left. 3 major clients had left in the past 2 months. Operating expenses were up because of Vanessa's renovations and her decision to hire 2 additional executives at inflated salaries. The Stella Corp deal falling through hurt them badly, Jenna continued. That was projected revenue they'd already factored into their budget. And now they're looking at either downsizing significantly or taking out a business loan just to afford office rent at market rates. I didn't know it was this bad, I said quietly. That's because they never told you anything. They never valued your input or your insight, even though you were bringing in the lion's share of their business. Jenna squeezed my hand. Madison, what you're doing isn't revenge. It's consequences. There's a difference, but it didn't feel good. That was the thing nobody tells you about setting boundaries with toxic family members. It doesn't feel victorious. It feels sad. Like mourning something that never really existed in the first place. 2 weeks later, they called a family meeting, an official one. Invitations sent by email, CCing all of us. Like we were business associates instead of blood relatives, I almost didn't go. Jenna offered to come with me to stand as my support, but I told her I needed to do this alone, or I needed to face them one last time and make my position clear. I arrived at my parents' house at exactly 7 p.m., the house I'd grown up in. The house where I'd spent 18 years trying to earn love, I'd never quite received. Everything looked the same. The expensive furniture my mother had carefully curated, the family photos on the walls, most of them featuring Vanessa's accomplishments. There was one photo of me, one, my high school graduation tucked in a corner where no one would really notice it. They were waiting in the dining room. The table was set, not for a business meeting, but for dinner. My favourite foods, or at least the foods I used to like, before they stopped paying attention to what I actually enjoyed. "Madison," my father said, standing as I entered, "thank you for coming." I didn't sit. "You said you wanted to talk, so talk." "Please, honey, sit down," my mother gestured to a chair. "We made your favourite, that chicken dish you always loved." "I haven't eaten chicken in 3 years, Mom. I told you I went pescatarian." Her face fell. "Oh, I didn't know. Of course she didn't know, and she'd never asked, but I sat anyway. Might as well hear what they had to say." My father cleared his throat. He looked older than I remembered, tired. "Madison, we owe you an apology." I waited, said nothing. "We didn't realize how much you were contributing to the company, how much we relied on you. Vanessa," he glanced at my sister, who was staring at her plate. "Vanessa has been struggling with the workload. We've lost several key accounts, and we've discovered some financial irregularities," my mother added carefully. "Some of the decisions made in the past few months weren't optimal." Vanessa finally looked up. "I made mistakes, okay? I thought I could handle it. I thought having the MBA and the credentials would be enough. But the clients, they all kept asking for you." I felt nothing, no satisfaction, no vindication, just emptiness. "We want you to come back," my father said. "We'll give you a better position. Equity in the company. A real stake. You can be a partner, Madison, equal to Vanessa. And we're hoping," my mother said softly, "that you'll reconsider the lease situation." There it was, the real reason for this dinner, the apology. That wasn't really an apology. They didn't miss me. They missed what I could do for them. "You know what I realized?" I said quietly. "For 8 years, I dreamed about this moment. The moment you'd finally see me. Finally acknowledge what I'd done. Finally admit that I was valuable." I looked at each of them. "But now that it's here, I don't need it anymore." "Madison, please." My mother's eyes were filling with tears. "We're family. We can work through this." "Are we, though?" I asked. "Are we family?" "Because family shows up for graduations. Family celebrates scholarships. Family doesn't fire you and replace you with your sister. Family doesn't treat you like you're invisible for 32 years and then suddenly want you back when it's convenient for them." "We made mistakes," my father admitted. "We see that now, but we're trying to make it right." "You're trying to make it convenient," I corrected. "There's a difference." I stood up. "I'm not renewing the lease. You have 45 days left to find a new location. I'm not coming back to the company. I have my own firm now, and it's thriving." "We heard you got the Stella Corp contract," Vanessa said quietly. The one I couldn't close. Yes. How much? That's none of your business. Vanessa laughed, but it was bitter. God, Madison, when did you get so cold? I'm not cold, I said. I'm just done. Done trying to earn something from people who were never going to give it to me. Done shrinking myself to make you feel bigger. Done being the daughter you could ignore until you needed something. My father stood up, his hands flat on the table. You're being incredibly selfish. This company is your legacy too. Your grandfather started it. Your mother and I built it. And you're just going to let it fail because we hurt your feelings? My feelings? My voice rose for the first time. Dad, you think this is about hurt feelings? You fired me. You erased 8 years of my work. You gave my job to someone who wasn't qualified because she had the right degree from the right school. And now you want to blame me for the consequences of your choices. We're offering you everything you wanted, my mother said desperately. Partnership, equity, recognition. What more do you need? I needed you to show up to my middle school graduation. I needed you to be excited about my scholarship instead of treating it like an inconvenience. I needed you to come to my college graduation instead of flying to New York for Vanessa. I needed you to see me, really see me, at least once in 32 years. The room was silent except for my mother's quiet crying. But you never did, I continued, and now you want me to save you from drowning because you suddenly realized I know how to swim. No, you don't get to skip the work of being a family and show up only when you need something. I picked up my purse. I'll give you one thing, though, one final piece of help, because despite everything, I'm not a cruel person. I pulled a business card from my wallet and set it on the table. This is a commercial real estate agent. She's good. She can help you find something in your price range. Tell her I sent you. She'll take good care of you. That's it? Vanessa asked. That's all we get? That's more than you gave me. I walked to the door. My father called after me. Madison, if you walk out that door, don't expect us to welcome you back. I turned, one hand on the doorknob. Dad, I haven't felt welcome here since I was 12 years old. This changes nothing. I left. I got in my car. I drove back to my penthouse, and I didn't cry. I felt lighter than I had in years. Jenna was waiting for me when I got home, having let herself in with the spare key I'd given her. She took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. How bad was it? They wanted me to save them, save the business, renew the lease. Come back like nothing happened? What did you say? I said no. I pulled back and smiled at her. I gave them a business card for a real estate agent and walked out. God, Madison, I'm so proud of you. We sat on my couch, looking out at the city lights. Jenna, did I do the right thing? Do you feel guilty? No, that's what's weird. I thought I'd feel guilty, but I just feel free. Then yes, she said firmly, you did the right thing. They had 32 years to treat you like family. They chose not to. You don't owe them anything. The next month passed quickly. My business grew. I hired Sarah away from my family's agency, doubling her salary and giving her the title of operations manager. She was brilliant, and she'd been wasted there. Your dad tried to convince me to stay, she told me on her first day, offered me a raise. But, Madison, after watching how they treated you, I couldn't. 2 weeks before their lease ended, moving trucks started showing up at the building. I watched from my penthouse window as they loaded boxes and furniture. The agency was moving to a smaller space across town, cheaper rent, less prestigious address, downsizing. Part of me wondered if I should feel victorious, but mostly I just felt sad. Sad for what could have been. Sad for the family I'd always wanted but never really had. On the last day of their lease, my father came to my office, alone. Kelly buzzed me, asking if I wanted to see him. I almost said no, but something made me say yes. He looked smaller than I remembered, older. He sat across from my desk like a client, not like my father. "We're out," he said. "The office is empty, cleaned. Keys are with the property manager." "Thank you." We sat in silence for a moment. "Your mother wanted me to tell you that we're sorry," he finally said. "Really sorry, not because of the business, because of everything." "And you?" I asked. "Are you sorry?" He met my eyes. "I'm sorry I didn't see you. I'm sorry I let your mother and I favor Vanessa. I'm sorry I fired you. I'm sorry for 32 years of making you feel less than." He paused. "I'm sorry it took losing you for me to realize what we had." It was the most honest thing he'd ever said to me. "I appreciate you saying that," I said carefully. "But Dad, apologies don't erase harm. They're the start of making amends, not the end." "I know." He stood to leave, then hesitated. "Your grandmother would be proud of you. You know that, right?" Tears pricked my eyes. "I hope so. She knew, even before the rest of us. She knew what you'd become." He smiled sadly. "She was right to trust you with her legacy." After he left, I sat at my desk for a long time. Then I called Mr. Chen. "Mr. Chen, that letter from my grandmother, the one she wanted me to read when certain conditions were met. What were those conditions?" "She specified the letter should be opened when you turned 32 or when your family showed their true colours, whichever came first." "I'm 32. "I know. I was waiting for you to ask. Would you like to come to my office tomorrow to receive it?" The next morning I sat in Mr. Chen's office, holding an envelope in my grandmother's handwriting, my name on the front, her familiar script, slightly shaky with age but still distinctly hers. Mr. Chen excused himself to give me privacy. I opened the envelope with trembling hands. "My dearest Madison," it began, "if you're reading this, it means what I feared has come true. Your parents chose Vanessa over you again." I had to stop reading for a moment, breathe, continue. "I'm giving you this property not just because I love you, but because I know you'll use it wisely. You have something your family lacks: empathy, wisdom, and quiet strength. You don't scream for attention. You don't demand validation. You simply exist, fully and beautifully, even when no one's watching. Your parents love you in their way, but they're blinded by their own ambitions, their own ideas of success. They see Vanessa's degrees and accolades and miss your character. They hear her voice because it's loud and miss your wisdom because it's quiet. Don't let them diminish your light, Madison. You were never too little. They were too blind. Build your own empire, my darling. Build it with the same integrity and grace you've shown your whole life. And remember, the best revenge isn't cruelty. It's living well. It's being so genuinely happy that you no longer care whether they notice or not. I see you. I've always seen you. And I'm so very proud of the woman you've become." "Love, always, Grandma Eleanor?" I cried. Finally, properly, all the tears I'd been holding back for weeks, months, years. I cried for the little girl at her middle school graduation looking for parents who never came. I cried for the teenager whose scholarship was brushed aside. I cried for the young woman who walked across that stage alone. I cried for all the versions of me who tried so hard to be enough. And then I cried from gratitude. For a grandmother who'd seen me, for a friend like Jenna who'd stood by me, for the strength to finally choose myself. When I was done, I folded the letter carefully and put it in my purse. Then I called Jenna. She knew, I said when she answered. Grandma knew. She knew they'd hurt me, and she gave me the means to save myself. Of course she knew, Jenna said softly. Madison, everyone who really looked at your family could see it. The question was always whether you'd see it too. I see it now. Good. So, what happens next? I looked around Mr. Chen's office at the city visible through the windows, at all the possibilities stretching out before me. Next, I live, really live, the way Grandma wanted me to. 6 months later, my consulting firm had grown to 12 employees. We'd moved to a bigger office space, still in my building, but taking up the entire 12th floor. Sarah was my COO. We'd landed 6 major clients. Revenue projections were exceeding every goal I'd set. I started teaching a class at the community college. Business strategy for young entrepreneurs. Students who reminded me of myself. Smart, hardworking, overlooked. I wanted to be the person for them that my grandmother had been for me. I travelled, solo trips to places I'd always wanted to see. I learned to paint. I adopted a cat named Eleanor who sat on my desk while I worked and purred approval at my business decisions. I learned to be happy, really genuinely happy, not the performance of happiness I'd mastered growing up, real joy, the kind that comes from living authentically. My family and I maintained a strange, distant politeness. We exchanged holiday cards. My mother texted occasionally, surface-level questions about my health and work. I responded politely but didn't engage deeply. They were rebuilding their business slowly, learning to adapt without me. Vanessa, I heard, had stepped down from her leadership position and was working in a more supportive role. Maybe she'd found her place. Maybe she was learning who she was beyond the golden child pedestal our parents had put her on. I hoped so. Despite everything, I didn't wish them harm. I just wished them elsewhere, living their lives while I lived mine. 1 year after leaving their company, I was featured in a local business magazine. Rising Stars in Consulting. They interviewed me about building my firm from the ground up, about taking risks, about believing in yourself when no one else does. The article went viral. Not huge viral, but enough that people started recognizing me. I got speaking invitations, podcast requests. Young women reached out, sharing their own stories of being overlooked in their families, of fighting for recognition, of finally choosing themselves. I answered every single message, shared my story, offered advice, became the voice I'd needed when I was younger. My phone buzzed one afternoon, a text from an unknown number. Hi, Madison. This is Vanessa. I read your article. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. Really sorry for everything. You didn't deserve how we treated you, and I'm proud of what you've built. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back, thank you for saying that. I wish you well. That was all. I didn't need more, didn't want more. It was enough. Another text, this time from my mother. Your father and I read the article. We're proud of you, sweetheart. I almost laughed. Proud now that I'd been validated by a magazine, by public recognition. Now that my success was undeniable and visible. Not proud when I was building it quietly, when I needed their belief more than their praise. But I didn't respond with bitterness. I just wrote back, "Thank you." And I meant it, not because their pride mattered to me anymore, but because I'd finally reached a place where it didn't hurt that it had taken this long. I thought about my grandmother's letter often, about living well being the best revenge, about being so genuinely happy that you stop caring whether anyone notices. I'd reached that place. I was happy. Not because I'd proven anyone wrong or gotten revenge or made them regret their choices. I was happy because I'd built a life I loved. Because I'd surrounded myself with people who valued me. Because I'd learned to value myself. One evening I stood on my balcony watching the sunset paint the city in shades of gold and pink. My cat curled around my ankles. In the distance I could see the lights of the city coming on, one by one. Each light a life, a story, a person finding their way. I thought about the question I'd been asked in the magazine interview. What would you tell your younger self? I'd given some generic answer about believing in yourself and perseverance. But the real answer, the one I'd been too raw to speak aloud, was this. I'd tell her that being invisible to people who should see you doesn't mean you're not worth seeing. I'd tell her that quiet strength is still strength. That building slowly is still building. That the family you choose can matter more than the family you're born into. I'd tell her that someday she'll stand in a penthouse she owns, looking out at a city full of possibility, and she won't be waiting for anyone to validate her worth. Because she'll know her worth herself. I'd tell her to hold on, that it gets better, that she gets better, that the pain of being overlooked becomes fuel for building something beautiful. And I'd tell her about a letter from a grandmother who saw her all along, waiting to be opened on the right day. A letter that would remind her she was never really invisible. She was just waiting to be seen by the person who mattered most, herself. I pulled out my phone and opened the Notes app. Started typing. Have you ever felt invisible in your own family? Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and self-respect? I paused, looking at the words. Then I continued. If this story resonated with you, please share it. Share it with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to choose themselves. That walking away isn't cruelty, it's survival. It's choosing peace over validation. And sometimes that's the bravest thing you can do. I posted it to my consulting firm's social media. Within an hour, it had been shared 200 times. Within a day, thousands. Comments poured in from people sharing their own stories, their own journeys from invisible to seen, from overlooked to valued, from waiting for approval to approving of themselves. I read every comment, responded when I could, built a community of people who understood. And in that moment, standing on my balcony with my cat purring at my feet and my grandmother's letter in my heart and a business I'd built with my own hands, thriving 12 floors below, I felt something I'd never quite felt before. Complete. Not because my family had finally apologized, not because I'd gotten revenge or proven anyone wrong, but because I'd chosen peace. I'd chosen myself. I'd chosen to build a life where I was seen, valued, and loved, not for what I could provide, but for who I was. My grandmother was right. Living well was the best revenge, but it was also the best reward, the best gift I could have ever given myself. I looked out at the city, at all those lights, and smiled. Somewhere out there, in those buildings and homes and offices, were other Madisons. Other quiet souls being overlooked, being dismissed, being told they weren't enough. And I hoped my story would reach them, would remind them that being invisible to some people doesn't make you invisible to everyone. That your worth isn't determined by who sees it. That sometimes the most important person who needs to see you is yourself. I raised my glass of wine to the city, to my grandmother, to every version of me that had led to this moment. I did it, Grandma, I whispered. I chose peace over validation, and I never looked back. The wind picked up, rustling through the plants on my balcony, and for a moment, just a moment, I could have sworn I felt her presence. Proud, loving, saying what she'd always said. I see you, my darling, I've always seen you. And finally, that was enough.